I'm arranging Jane Austen paperbacks on the display table at Fox and Pine Books when I hear my mother's voice floating from the back room. The door is cracked just enough that her words slip through, sharp and clear. "We're counting on Dylan's startup taking off this year," she says, her tone bright with the special enthusiasm she reserves for conversations about my brother. "Ava? Oh, she's sweet, but she'll never amount to much beyond that little bookstore job." My hands freeze mid-motion, a copy of Pride and Prejudice suspended in air. The familiar weight of disappointment settles in my chest, heavier today of all days. Just this morning, I received the call about Grandma Eleanor passing away. "Linda, she manages the place now," comes the reply, probably from my aunt. "That's something." Mom laughs. Managing books instead of writing them isn't exactly something to brag about at the club. The mug of coffee in my left hand slips from my suddenly numb fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. Dark liquid splashes across my ankles and seeps into the floorboards. "Ava?" Mom calls out, her voice instantly shifting to sugary concern. "Everything okay out there?" I stare at the broken ceramic pieces scattered around my feet. "Fine," I call back, my voice steadier than I feel. "Just dropped something." The brown puddle spreads beneath the Austen display, staining the bottom edge of a promotional poster. How fitting that even my coffee knows its place at the bottom, something to be cleaned up and forgotten. Last week's family dinner replays in my mind as I grab the mop from behind the counter. Dad raised his glass in another toast to Dylan's second business venture, even though the first one burned through $200,000 of their retirement savings before collapsing. "To my son, the entrepreneur," Dad had announced, his voice thick with pride. "Taking real risks, creating something from nothing." I'd mentioned my promotion to manager that night, slipping it into the conversation during a rare moment of silence. "That's nice, honey," Mom had said with a pat on my hand before immediately turning back to Dylan. "Now tell us more about these angel investors you're meeting." Dad hadn't even looked my way when he'd added, "Managing other people's stories isn't the same as writing your own, Ava. When are you going to do something that matters?" The bell above the door jingles as I finish mopping up the coffee. I quickly dispose of the broken mug pieces before greeting the elderly customer who enters, forcing a smile that doesn't reach my eyes. 3 hours later, the phone rings. I know it's Mom before I even check the caller ID. "Ava, sweetheart," she says without preamble. "I need to ask a favor." I balance the phone between my ear and shoulder, continuing to update the inventory spreadsheet. "What kind of favor?" "Dylan needs a little cash flow for some unexpected startup expenses." Her voice drops to that conspiratorial tone she uses when discussing money. "Just a small loan. $2,000 should cover it." The spreadsheet blurs before my eyes. $2,000, almost my entire monthly income. "Mom, I need to pay my rent this month," I say quietly. "Well, yes, but family comes first, doesn't it? Dylan's at a critical juncture. You can always stay with us if you're short on rent." My fingers stop trembling as I scroll down to the next entry on my inventory list. "I'm sorry, but I can't." The silence on the other end stretches until it's nearly a physical presence. "I see," she finally says, her disappointment radioactive through the phone. "I thought I raised you better than this." After we hang up, I sit staring at nothing, knowing exactly what happens next. She'll call Dylan immediately, telling him how selfish I am, how I never support the family. Dad will get on the extension and they'll commiserate about their disappointment of a daughter. The thought of becoming completely estranged from my only family sends a cold wave through me. Yet something harder and more certain forms in my chest. I check my watch time to close the shop. As I flip the sign on the door from open to closed, a realization settles over me with unexpected clarity. They've never seen me as more than a supporting character in Dylan's story, the quiet sister. The reliable one who never causes trouble, but never deserves the spotlight either. The security system beeps as I said it, and I wonder what would happen if, just once, I stopped playing the role they've assigned me. The plain manila envelope sits on my coffee table, unassuming except for my grandmother Eleanor's elegant handwriting across the front. I've been avoiding it for 3 days since Mr. Westfield, her attorney, handed it to me after the funeral. "She was quite insistent this reach you directly," he'd said, his eyes kind behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Not through family channels." Now, alone in my apartment above Fox and Pine Books, I finally slide my finger under the seal. Rain taps against the windows, a gentle percussion that seems to urge me forward. Inside, I find a thick stack of legal documents, bound with a blue ribbon that matches the color of Eleanor's favorite reading chair. The first page bears the letterhead of Bishop Legacy Holdings. I scan the contents, certain I'm misreading something. Then I read it again. This can't be right, I whisper to the empty room. My legs give out. I sink to the floor, papers spreading around me in a semicircle of impossible figures. 14 rental properties across 3 states, a 70% ownership stake in Bishop Private Equity, investment accounts, art collections, real estate. The total assets listed at the bottom of page 4, $48 million. All of it left to me, not to my parents, not to Golden, boy Dylan. To me, Ava Carter, the bookstore manager who can barely afford her 1-bedroom apartment. My hands shake so badly I have to press them flat against the hardwood floor. The coolness of the boards grounds me as I try to process what this means. I am wealthy, extraordinarily wealthy, and no one in my family knows. Beneath the legal documents, I find a cream-colored envelope containing a letter written in Eleanor's unmistakable penmanship. I pull it out, noticing a small collection of family photos that spill onto the floor. One catches my eye, Eleanor and me at my college graduation, her arm around my shoulders, both of us beaming while my parents stand to the side, focused on Dylan adjusting his tie. I unfold the letter, Eleanor's voice seeming to fill the room as I read. My dearest Ava, if you're reading this, I've moved on to whatever grand library awaits in the beyond. Don't waste tears, I've had a magnificent run. You're wondering why I've left everything to you. The answer is simple. You're the only one who values things beyond their price tag. Your father chases status. Your mother craves appearances. Dylan pursues validation through reckless ventures. But you, my quiet one, seek meaning. I've watched you build that little bookstore into something special. Not because it will make you rich, but because you believe stories matter. That's the kind of person who should steward what I've built. Now, a piece of advice from someone who learned it the hard way. Don't show them what you have. Let them show you who they are first. Money changes how people see you, rarely for the better. Once they know, you'll never again know if they value you or what you possess. All my love, Eleanor. I press the letter to my chest, breathing in the faint scent of her perfume that lingers on the paper. Rain continues to drum against the windows as I consider what this means for my life going forward. If I tell my family about the inheritance, everything changes. The parents who dismissed my career choices will suddenly approve. Dylan will have 1,000 business ideas he needs funding for. Extended family I barely know will appear with sob stories and investment opportunities. Every relationship in my life will be filtered through the lens of my wealth. I'll never know if someone respects me for who I am or what I can give them. I'll become a walking ATM rather than a person. But keeping it secret means living a double life. It means watching my parents continue to dismiss me while I could solve their financial worries with a signature. It means enduring Dylan's condescension when I could buy and sell his startup dreams 10 times over. Would revealing the truth bring respect or just create chaos? Would it heal old wounds or simply paper over them with dollar bills? The next morning, I meet with Mr. Westfield at his downtown office. Rain has given way to weak sunshine that filters through his blinds as he explains the details of my inheritance. Your grandmother was quite explicit about the transfer of assets, he says, sliding another document across his desk. You have complete control, no conditions, no oversight from other family members. She didn't leave anything to my parents or Dylan? I ask, still struggling to believe it. Mr. Westfield adjusts his glasses. Miss Bishop left them each a modest sum, already distributed. The bulk of her estate, the business holdings, properties, investments, those are exclusively yours. A small flame of vindication flickers in my chest. Eleanor saw me, really saw me when my own parents couldn't be bothered. As I look at my grandmother's letter again, I wonder, should I reveal my inheritance and prove my worth to my family, or keep it secret and observe their true colors? The temptation to show them how wrong they'd been was strong, but my grandmother's words suggested a different path. I tuck the letter back into its envelope, decision forming like a lighthouse emerging through fog. It's time to see who my family really is when they don't know I'm watching. I stare at the foreclosure notice Mom texted me, my stomach knotting as I read the bank's formal language. It's been 3 weeks since Grandma Eleanor's funeral, and now this. Call me as soon as you can, Ava. Mom's message reads beneath the photo. It's an emergency. When my phone rings minutes later, her voice trembles. The bank says we might lose the house. Your father put it up as collateral for Dylan's new business venture. The house is worth over $2 million, I say, gripping the edge of the bookstore counter. How much did you refinance? $1.8 million, she admits, her voice small. Dylan needed significant capital for his innovative healthcare app. The same brother who flunked out of his pre-med program after 2 semesters. I close my eyes, counting to 10 silently. And now the bank is foreclosing? Dylan's missed several loan payments. The investors pulled out last week. Her voice hardens. If you'd helped when we asked for that small loan, maybe this wouldn't have happened. My jaw tightens. Mom, $2,000 wouldn't have saved a business hemorrhaging millions. Well, something has to be done. Your father's reputation at the country club is at stake. Of course, their social standing matters more than financial responsibility. I have to go. I have customers, I say, though the store is empty. After hanging up, I open my laptop and log into the secure portal Mr. Westfield set up. The screen displays the Bishop Legacy Group's holdings, my holdings. Grandmother Eleanor's $48 million fortune sits under layers of shell companies and trusts, invisible to anyone looking for connections to Ava Carter. With a few clicks, I compose an email to Mr. Westfield. I'd like to explore acquiring certain distressed assets, confidentially. The next morning, I sign papers establishing 3 subsidiary companies under the Bishop Legacy umbrella. Each has a specific purpose, one for real estate acquisitions, another for personal loans, and a third for business debt. None bear any connection to the name Carter. That night, I lie awake in my apartment above the bookstore, surrounded by the comforting smell of old pages and wood polish. The weight of my decisions presses against my chest. No one knows that I'm methodically purchasing my family's financial obligations. Not my parents, not Dylan, not even Martha, who manages the bookstore when I'm not there. The isolation of keeping such significant secrets sometimes feels crushing. I'm becoming a shadow investor in my family's destruction, or perhaps their salvation, depending on what lessons they learn. 2 days later, Mrs. Henderson, an elderly regular customer, peers at me over her reading glasses. I saw your grandmother's obituary. Eleanor Bishop was a remarkable woman. I nod, surprised by the connection. You knew my grandmother? We served on the library board together years ago. Her weathered hand pats mine. She was the smartest woman I knew. Said you were just like her, quiet on the outside, steel on the inside. My throat tightens as I hand her the books she's purchasing. Steel on the inside. I wonder if Grandma Eleanor knew what I would eventually do with her legacy. Sunday dinner arrives with its usual expectations. Mom has prepared pot roast, Dad's favorite, likely hoping to soften him before discussing their financial situation. Dylan arrives late, designer sunglasses perched on his head despite the cloudy day. Sorry I'm late, he announces, dropping into his chair. Had a promising meeting with some new investors. Dad perks up. That's my boy, always bouncing back. I focus on cutting my meat into precise pieces, saying nothing. Halfway through dinner, Mom sets down her fork. We need to discuss our situation as a family. She glances at me. If you'd just help with a small loan, Dylan wouldn't be in this mess. We're talking about keeping a roof over our heads. The familiar pressure builds, be the good daughter, sacrifice for family. But something has shifted inside me. Sometimes the kindest thing is letting people face consequences. I say quietly. Mom's water glass freezes halfway to her lips. What did you just say? I said sometimes people need to experience the results of their choices to learn from them. Dylan snorts. Since when did you become a financial expert? Still playing with books while the adults handle real business. I meet his gaze steadily. The bookstore turned a profit last quarter. How's your track record? The table falls silent. I've never spoken to Dylan this way. Ava, Dad says, his tone warning. Your brother is trying to build something meaningful. So am I reply, surprising myself with how calm I feel. I'm building a life I don't have to lie about. The realization washes over me like cool water. I don't need their approval anymore. Eleanor's inheritance isn't just financial. It's the freedom to be myself without apology. Back at work Monday morning, Martha notices my changed demeanor. You seem different today. Good different. Mr. Westfield calls with updates on my acquisitions. The Carter mortgage has been transferred to Horizon Holdings as requested. They have no idea you're behind it. And Dylan's business loans? Acquired through the tertiary company. Everything's proceeding according to plan. I thank him for his discretion. knowing he respects my judgment without knowing the details. That evening, I make my boldest move yet, instructing my financial team to issue a formal bankruptcy notice to all Carter family debtors. The notice will come from Bishop Legacy Group, a name that means nothing to them now, but soon will change everything. As I sign the final authorization, a strange calm settles over me. I've become the invisible hand controlling my family's financial fate. Now it's time for them to learn who I really am. Next day, I spread the financial documents across Mr. Westfield's polished mahogany conference table, my finger tracing the path of debt my family has accumulated. The room smells of lemon polish and old books, reminding me of Grandma Eleanor's study. "Are you certain this is the approach you want to take, Miss Carter?" "Mr." Westfield adjusts his wire-rimmed glasses, concern etching lines around his eyes. "Absolutely." My voice holds steadier than it would have 3 months ago. "We've acquired their mortgage, Dylan's business loans, and the home equity line. Now we need to coordinate the timing." The legal team nods, making notes as I outline the bankruptcy proceedings. For years, I've been invisible to my family. Now I control their financial fate through a web of companies they'll never connect to me. "Begin foreclosure notifications tomorrow," I instruct. The Bishop Legacy Group remains anonymous until the court appearance. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzes while I'm cataloging new arrivals at the bookstore. Mother's name flashes on the screen. "Ava, sweetheart," she says, breathless with false cheer. The water heater burst this morning, completely flooded the basement. I shelve another volume, pressing the phone between my ear and shoulder. "That's terrible. Is everything okay?" "Well, it's going to cost $5,000 to replace. I was hoping you might help out, just until your father's bonus comes through next month." The lie sits between us, heavy and familiar. Last week, I'd overheard her telling her bridge club about the country club membership dues coming due. I thought Dad's company froze all bonuses this quarter. I keep my voice neutral, curious how deep the deception will go. A pause. "Oh, did I say bonus? I meant commission, from the Henderson account." I run my finger along the spine of a leather-bound classic. "I'm sorry, Mom, I can't help right now." "But family helps family, Ava." Her voice sharpens. "Your father and I have always been there for you." I think of the college fund they'd promised but spent on Dylan's first venture. Of the countless times they'd dismissed my accomplishments while celebrating my brother's failures as bold attempts. "I'm really sorry about your water heater," I say, and end the call. That evening, I email instructions to accelerate the bankruptcy proceedings. By morning, my parents will receive notice to appear in court within 48 hours. My finger hovers over the send button for several heartbeats before pressing down firmly. The weight of what I'm doing settles around my shoulders. Not revenge consequences. When I received the 5th voicemail from my father demanding I do the right thing for the family, I paused. Should I reveal myself now and offer them one chance to change, or let the court appearance provide the necessary wake-up call they needed? I listened to his message again, hearing the entitlement beneath his worry. He doesn't ask how I'm doing or acknowledge my own financial struggles. His concern extends only to their comfort, their reputation. The next morning, Mr. Westfield walks me through what to expect in court. Sunlight streams through his office windows as he reviews the proceedings, his manner gentle but thorough. "They'll be angry," he warns, pouring me tea from an antique silver pot. "Humiliated, too. Are you prepared for that?" I wrap my hands around the warm cup. I have spent my life preparing for their disappointment. At least this time, it'll be justified. He nods, understanding in his eyes. "Your grandmother would be proud. Not of their suffering," he clarifies, "but of your strength. Eleanor never confused kindness with weakness." That afternoon, Martha stops me as I'm locking up the bookstore. "You've seemed preoccupied lately," she says, her gray hair catching the late sunlight. "I can watch the store tomorrow if you need time for yourself." She doesn't pry, doesn't demand explanations, just offers support without conditions, something my family has never managed. "Actually, I do have some personal business to handle." I hand her the spare keys. "Thank you, Martha." That's what friends are for. She squeezes my hand before turning toward the bus stop. The contrast between Martha's genuine concern and my family's constant demands clarifies everything. I've built connections based on mutual respect while my family trades only in obligation and guilt. That evening, I drive past my parents' house. Through the large front windows, I glimpse unusual activity. Mother carefully wraps what looks like her prized crystal collection, while father speaks animatedly on the phone. The next day, my phone alerts me to online listings. They've begun selling luxury items, mother's designer handbags, father's golf clubs, even the painting from their entryway that they'd once claimed was a family heirloom. When I check with my contacts at the country club, I learn Dylan's investor friends have stopped returning his calls. Word of pending bankruptcy spreads quickly in their social circles. The final confirmation comes via text from my cousin, who works at my parents' law firm. Uncle Greg and Aunt Linda came in today looking rue. Attorney suggested meeting with someone from Bishop Legacy Group before court. Never seen them so scared. I place my phone face down on my desk, close my eyes, and take a deep breath. The machinery I've set in motion cannot be stopped now. Tomorrow, in that courtroom, I'll finally step out of the shadows and into the role my grandmother prepared me for. Not the overlooked daughter, not the reliable sister, the creditor, the owner. The consequence. The following day, I arrived at the attorney's office 20 minutes early, parking my sensible Honda 3 blocks away. Through the lobby's glass doors, I spot them huddled near the reception desk, Mom fussing with the collar of her deliberately modest blouse, the one she saves for parent-teacher conferences and insurance claim meetings. Dad shifts from foot to foot, rehearsing what I imagine is his hard-working American speech. The gold Rolex he normally flaunts is conspicuously absent from his wrist. The tan line where it usually sits speaks volumes. From my vantage point behind a potted fern, I watch Dylan pace near the water cooler, his expensive haircut at odds with his carefully rumpled button-down. He catches sight of an assistant walking by with a portfolio labeled Bishop Legacy Group and snorts. Some hedge fund out of New York thinks they can just swoop in and take everything, he tells Mom. We'll see about that. People like us are why America works. These vulture capitalists don't understand family values. Mom pats his arm. The judge will see we're good people who hit a rough patch. Nobody wants to put a family out on the street. My phone buzzes with a text from Mr. Westfield. Conference room B ready. Are you certain about this approach? I type back. Absolutely. The receptionist directs my family toward the conference room. I count to 60 before following, giving my sensible flats time to carry me down the hallway. The weight of the portfolio in my hands feels substantial, like something earned rather than given. When I push open the heavy oak door, the conversation inside halts. Mom's mouth forms a surprised O. Ava, what are you doing here? Dad asks, his rehearsed humility slipping. We're in the middle of something important. I place my portfolio on the polished table. I know exactly what you're in the middle of. Dylan rolls his eyes. Unless you've got $200,000 to bail us out, this doesn't concern you. Actually, I slide the portfolio toward the family attorney. It concerns me quite directly. The attorney, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who's handled the family's affairs since before I was born, opens the portfolio. His eyebrows climb steadily upward as he flips through the documents. These appear to be ownership certificates, he says, voice faltering. Bishop Legacy Group Island. Mine, I finish for him. Or more accurately, I am Bishop Legacy Group's legal representative. The silence that follows feels like the moment after a thunderclap that's suspended second when the brain catches up to what the ears have heard. I believe we have some financial matters to discuss. I say, taking the seat at the head of the table. Mom laughs nervously. This is a joke, right? You work at a bookstore. I manage a bookstore. I correct her. I also manage 14 rental properties, a controlling interest in a private equity firm, and now, as it happens, your mortgage and business loans. The attorney clears his throat. Perhaps we should continue this discussion at the courthouse. The judge is expecting us in 30 minutes. In the courthouse's wood-paneled bankruptcy courtroom, my family clusters on one side of the aisle while I sit alone on the other. Mr. Westfield joins me moments before the bailiff calls for all to rise. Judge Harriman, a silver-haired woman with penetrating blue eyes, reviews the file before her. I understand the primary creditor in this case is present, she says, looking up. Bishop Legacy Group, represented by Miss Ava Bishop Carter? I stand. Yes, Your Honor. Dylan's chair scrapes against the floor as he jumps to his feet. This is ridiculous. She's my sister. She can't be our creditor. Mr. Carter, Judge Harriman says, not raising her voice but somehow filling the room with it, you will be seated immediately or removed from my courtroom. He sits, face flushed with anger. The judge turns to me. Miss, Bishop Carter, my understanding is that you've acquired the majority of the debts owed by the Carter family through your company? That's correct, Your Honor. I have documentation showing the acquisition trail and current ownership. She examines the papers I submit, nodding occasionally. Everything appears to be in order. As the primary creditor, what resolution are you seeking today? I straighten my shoulders. Bishop Legacy Group proposes a debt restructuring plan rather than foreclosure, with 3 non-negotiable conditions. The family attorney leans forward. And those conditions? First, Dylan Carter must maintain full-time employment for at least 2 years before attempting any new business ventures. I say, not looking at my brother. Second, the family home must be sold and the proceeds used to pay down existing debt. Third, my parents must attend financial literacy courses as part of the agreement. Mom covers her mouth with her hand. Dad stares at the table before him. These terms seem reasonable to me, Judge Harriman says. The alternative would be complete liquidation of assets. Through the courtroom's open doors, I spot 2 of Mom's garden club friends whispering in the hallway. News travels fast. By evening, their entire social circle will know about the Carter family's financial collapse. The judge looks at our family attorney. Does your client wish to accept these terms, or should we proceed with standard bankruptcy protocols? Everyone turns to look at the family attorney, whose eyes dart between my parents and me. The weight of decades of family history hangs in the balance. After what feels like hours but is merely seconds, he clears his throat. On behalf of the Carter family, he says, voice steady but resigned, we accept the terms as presented by Miss Bishop Carter. The gavel comes down with a finality that echoes through the courtroom, closing one chapter and opening another. 6 months after the acquisition, the quarterly meeting of Bishop Legacy Group falls silent as I stand at the head of the conference table. Sunlight streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the portfolio reports before each board member. Their eyes track my movements as I gesture toward the projection screen. The Harrison Avenue properties have exceeded our renovation budget by 12%. I say, my voice steady and clear in the hushed room. But our tenant applications have increased 3-fold, justifying the additional investment in sustainable materials. Mr. Westfield nods approvingly from his seat at the far end. 6 months ago, I would have whispered these recommendations from a corner chair. Now I command the room with the quiet confidence Eleanor always saw in me. Our next agenda item concerns the Riverfront Development Fund. I continue, clicking to the next slide. I propose increasing our commitment by 20%, focusing on affordable housing for seniors and educational spaces. The board members exchange surprised glances. It's a bold move, exactly the kind of investment Eleanor would have championed, blending profit with purpose. When the vote passes unanimously, I feel my grandmother's presence like a gentle hand on my shoulder. Later that afternoon, the familiar bell above Fox and Pine Books jingles as I push open the door. The scent of paper and coffee wraps around me like an old friend. This is Tuesday, my bookstore day. I could have abandoned this place after the inheritance, but something in me needs the solid reality of books beneath my fingers, the quiet conversations with customers who have no idea who I am beyond Ava, the helpful bookstore manager. Miss Carter, Jenny calls from behind the register. She's 19, working her way through community college with the same determined focus I once had. The new shipment of classics arrived this morning. Perfect timing, I say, hanging my coat on the rack by the door, the same one where I once hung it every day. The difference is I now own not just the books inside, but the building itself and the block beyond. I help Jenny unpack the shipment, showing her how to check for binding quality and arrange the display. When she mentions her struggle to afford next semester's tuition, I don't hesitate. Jenny, the store has a scholarship program for employees. I tell her, carefully, not saying it's actually my program, created last month with Eleanor's principles in mind. I'd like to recommend you for it. Her eyes widen. Really, that would change everything. Someone once believed in me that way, I say simply. Now it's your turn. The evening finds me hosting a small dinner in my apartment above the store. The space remains modest by choice, though I've added comfortable furnishings and better lighting. Mr. Westfield arrives first, followed by Martha, who managed the store during my absence. They're the only ones who know both sides of my life now. Martha raises her glass, to seeing people for who they truly are, not what they have. Mr. Westfield adds, and to Eleanor, who saw the truth in Ava long before anyone else did. I smile, grateful for these genuine connections that have nothing to do with my bank accounts. The following Sunday, I park my car at a discreet distance and watch my family move into their new house in Salem. It's a modest 3-bedroom with a generous yard, the kind of place where people build real lives rather than facades. The foreclosure and bankruptcy proceedings left them little choice but to accept my terms: financial counseling, reasonable employment, and living within actual means. Dylan carries boxes from a small moving truck, no longer the entitled entrepreneur but someone learning the value of steady work. My parents arrange potted vegetable plants along the porch, railing a humble beginning to the garden they now need for practical reasons. I don't approach them. Our relationship is rebuilding slowly through carefully structured monthly dinners, where we're learning to see each other clearly for perhaps the first time. They know now what I'm capable of, but more importantly, they're beginning to recognize who I've always been. Back at the bookstore, I hang a small wooden plaque beside the register. It reads, "True strength isn't about what you have, it's about how quietly you carry it." Eleanor's words, though no one else would recognize them. As I watch my family adjusting to their new reality, I wonder if true forgiveness comes from understanding people's limitations or from releasing expectations entirely. What would you do? Maintain careful distance from those who undervalued you, or attempt to build something new on more honest ground? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between, in the quiet strength of knowing your own worth regardless of who recognizes it.